You're still watching the program this morning on ITV. It's now time for our second discussion on the program. Well, that clip you just saw, the news clip you just saw, there was an accident that happened along the ever-busy Mpape road, just adjacent the highbrow Matama district of the FCT. There, although no lives, a life was lost later from what we gathered on that day. But the question now is, what has been done so far since after that incident? Because from our findings, that accident was actually caused by a truck that failed a brake. That was not the first time that has been happening like this on this very road, especially from the hilltop of Mpape down to the junction just before you start ascending into Mpape main town. So this morning we shall be looking at the how to reduce the recurrence of truck accidents, especially along the Mpape road. Yes, Mpape road is just one lane into and out of the suburb, but that does not mean that we should allow things like this to continue. But I have in the studio this morning to look at how we're going to be addressing this menace of road accidents along Mpape Road, the sector commander, that is the FCT command. He is CC, that is sector commander Ochi Oga Samuel. A very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Yes, let's start with your being here today. On your way in, how did you see the Mpape Road, sir?
Thank you very much once again.
Traffic-wise.
Okay. The traffic was not too heavy this morning. A little bit of a lighter aspect of it. But then we are familiar with Mpape Road. Mpape Road has always been of high traffic volume. And we also know that it has been one of the flashpoints in the FCT, realizing the nature of the environment, the slippery and the steepy nature of the place. Quite a number of incidences that happened. I remember some years ago, a family lost the mother and two other children, yes, as a result of mismanagement of traffic along the route. I was actually the commanding officer in charge of the central area then, and it was really an unfortunate situation. So incidences like that had happened on Mpape Road a number of times.
Yes, like you rightly said, the traffic was not much this morning. I guess with the presence of your men on the street, and then some individuals have taken it upon themselves to see that we have a very smooth movement along the Mpape Road. But why are we having reoccurrence of this accident, like you mentioned now? Why do we keep having it if we have your men on the road? Is it the attitude of the drivers, or is just the nature of the road? Let's get it, sir.
Okay, the drivers are contributory to this situation, and let me also say that the citizens are not helping matters. If you look at the situation, we have the Okada riders, we have the Keke Napep, and then we have the taxis, and we have the individual owners of vehicles that are using the road. Now, if you look at the habit of all these ones that I've mentioned, a situation where the Okada riders, tend to occupy most part of the road. If you are coming in, like I was coming in this morning, they were on both left and right of the road, which of course is unfortunate. And then we see the Keke Napep intruding, even with this clustered environment, the Keke Napep are still trying to also have their way. And then, unfortunately, the taxis that are always in a rush are also trying to get. And then you look at the nature of the road. Now, these situations contribute to whatever thing that is happening largely. These are not issues that you want to stand and then because you are controlling traffic, you can control. It is the issue of attitude and habit of individuals. Like the example I've given, a situation where a truck was descending the road and suddenly the truck tend to maneuver to avoid getting into an Okada. And as a result of that, the man that was climbing the hill noticed that the truck was misbehaving and tried to also maneuver, and eventually the vehicle got into the ditch and it led to the death of the family members that I'm talking about. These are issues that a road safety personnel, a police personnel, or whoever that is controlling traffic at that point may not be able to control immediately. Now, what are the things that we must look at? We must look at the consciousness of road users in this environment. even though you are a visitor that you are coming in, if you look at the steep nature of the place, you must realize that, look, this place could be dangerous. This place could cause, lead to a crash. A driving of any habit of this place could lead to a crash. And it brings to mind the fact that I will need to be what? Be careful. Need to exercise some restraint. You don't need to drive at a speed, particularly on this type of a steep area of an environment that we have in the Papi. And then we're also looking at this aspect of the trucks that are predominant in this environment.
Okay, but before we go into the truck, which is our center point of this discussion, let's look at the attitude. You just mentioned the keke drivers and the Okadas. We've observed here in Papi, where we have a large numbers of them. One, we've seen underage riders. We've seen those driving. We don't know if you issue licenses to them. We've seen Okadas or motorcyclists without plate numbers. Now, in a situation where these persons drive the road, whether they are underage, whether they are not well trained, they are not they are not licensed, their bikes are not licensed, how do you address such issues? Because if you have someone who is licensed, you know this person can maneuver his way very well. And we've observed that your men don't arrest Okadas, even on this Papi road. So what's the situation with Okadas and keke riders, tricycle riders in Abuja also, just like we're looking at what, are they licensed or they just buy the bikes and go on the street?
Okay, the issue of motorcyclists, keke, is not peculiar to Papi. We have the experiences in other parts of the FCT. And then the Federal Road Safety Corps has been addressing, and we are still addressing, the issue of keke napep, the issue of Okada riders as far as FCT is concerned. Let me draw your mind back to the fact that the Okada riders are not supposed to operate within the central area.
Yes.
We're all familiar with that.
Yes.
And then a number of them, that are still allowed to operate outside the municipal, have gotten, to have the feeling that, look, nothing goes or anything can happen. And we are familiar with also that. Like the aspect of whether they are licensed or not, the category that they are supposed to fall within is the category of the license A, that they're supposed to be licensed to drive, to be able to ride either the keke or the motorcycle, as the case may be. And the law is still there for us to issue them license. We're holding a workshop for all categories of drivers, keke napep, and all that, within the mood. I think precisely from 14.
Well, if you are going to give us that information, we may be charging you for that, but that is a good platform.
I'm bringing that in because to make the point of the fact that issues that
we just want to make it easier for you. If on the program, if you can go ahead and tell them, but at the end of the program we'll on a more commercial level. Yes,
the emphasis I'm laying is the aspects of arrangement to get them on. I think there's a need for us to emphasize that, so that you get to realize that, look, we have not ignored rearrangement, reorganization of these organizations. As much as possible, we know that there is the security element that is involved in this matter. For instance, if you look at the Okada riders, there is an element of violence.
Yes.
A number of things. If you come into this level of enforcement and you don't bring in some other issues, you may have a problem. And the general public will not get to realize that, look, it is because we want to streamline, we want to enforce that these things are happening. So you must marry a lot of things if you are going to streamline, if you are going to rearrange, and if you are going to effectively bring some level of sanity. There are quite a number of things you must look at.
So are they tested? If, for instance, you said their license are on level grade,
category
A.
Yes.
Do they have to go for road tests, just like we have for the normal vehicle
in
drivers?
fact, just like the drivers go to driving school, that curriculum is being inculcated in the driving school system, where they must go to the driving school and do the normal lessons, the 26 contacts that any other driver does, and then they are given the license to be able to ride the keke napep or the motorcycle, as the case may be. So all this is part of the curriculum that is being put in place for them to be effectively scrutinized and also arranged to get on board as far as we're concerned.
So what about enforcement? Do you penalize those,
of course,
the Okadas? Because we are so peculiar about Okada riders.
Okada riders
they contribute the bulk of accidents we observe on this road.
Where they are arrested, of course, they are made to face the law. Yes, we have crowd of them that you watching from outside, you may never know that they have been arrested. I want to tell you that we have a dump, a collaboration with the VIO, where Okada riders that violate traffic regulations in the FCT have been, impounded and even confiscated. 1,000 and over of those riders are being confiscated on daily basis, and then are being kept. But because probably the general public that may not have knowledge of what we are doing at the level of enforcement, you would think that we are not arresting them. And these things are happening. And that is why I said there are a lot of dimensions when you look at the aspect of Okada riding, not only in FCT, but in other parts of the country. You have a situation where some political office holders believe that the only way I can get back to my people is to buy a number of these motorcycles and give out. So a number of them that you have considered to be underage and all that are being given this motorcycle without passing through the normal regulations. And then these motorcycles are injected into the general public without passing through the normal processes. So these challenges are necessary for us to look at every other aspect, and be able to regulate them and coordinate them in such a way that they don't become menace to the society, but rather help to augment the transport system in the country.
All right, let's go back to our focus of the discussion, truck accidents. Now, if you look at the Abuja, or let's say the Papi routes, for instance, this is where most of them is their base because of the quarry in this area. Some of the trucks are outdated or rickety trucks. We've had experience some time ago when there was an accident, and those on the scene were trying to explain to us that what the driver tried doing was pumping the brake. And we are wondering, in this modern time, we still have such trucks plying Nigerian roads. So what is the situation? Are there categories of trucks that we are supposed to be having in the country now, or anybody can just clamp on the truck and go on the road? Because what we saw, mostly they will tell you is brake failure, brake failure, brake failure. Is it that the trucks we have now are still the old ones, or we just buy any trucks without proper check for those trucks to be if those trucks are roadworthy?
Okay. The two issues you have raised are likely part of the problem that we have. Of course, people get to buy vehicles, and probably because of no stringent regulation as to which vehicle comes in, it becomes a problem. And not only that, maintenance of these trucks that we already have, is also contributing. People begin to say a number of times that we have economy is hard and things like that. So, the aspect of maintenance has been a problem. For us in the Federal Road Safety Corps, we have just begun, certification of vehicles nationwide, and this is part of the reasons. Just like we have, pointed out, the need for us to do at this time. We have also realized that quite a number of vehicles that have been on fleet for some time are no longer roadworthy. And there's a need for us to do recertification of these vehicles and be able to tell the owners, look, this one cannot be on the road anymore. Under the Road Transport Safety Standardization Scheme, we have started certification of vehicles nationwide, including the trucks that you are talking about. And I want to tell you that, in no long time from now, as the results are being released, quite a number of these trucks that are not roadworthy must be made to go back for maintenance, or those ones that we know that are completely, not roadworthy, maybe parked and things like that. So we're working towards that to ensure that these issues are streamlined. So
as part of your consultation with these drivers or the rest of them, have you been able to find out from this particular set of drivers, especially those that apply the Papi road, the reasons why this is occurring? Because I believe they have a union. For instance, when we had this last incident, we suggested that what was applied in the Nyanya exits, where trucks are given some particular hours of the day to run, we presented this same issue to some of them, and it did not go well with them. Have you been able to sit them down and explain to them that, look, at this particular time of the day, you can reduce your movement to see that we have less incidents of this kind of unavoidable accidents?
The problem we have been having, particularly for the Papi, as we are all familiar with, is the nature of business that occurs here. The quarry issue the site has been here, and I think it is the major reason why the satellite town, the Papi, satellite town came to be from the record that we have seen so far. So, depriving them of a particular time of the day, so to say, using the road may affect their business. That has always been the problem that has been raising. But like you have rightly pointed out, it is not too far for us to get back to them, to the union, and let them realize that, look, lives are being lost here. And there's a need for us to look at the possibility of giving, particularly during peak area, peak period, early hours of the morning, and then late in the night, for them to reduce the number of trucks that ply the road. I think there's the possibility for us to realize or to come into that terms with them. It is still something we can work along with them and other agencies of government. As much as possible, we believe strongly that the residents of Papi, the community that are here in Papi, and those that are using the road should have some level of sensitization. Apart from the fact that we have a lot to do with the drivers and truck owners in this place, there's a need for that level of sensitization to also be carried out among the community. Like I said from the beginning of my address, I said, attitude is a problem.
Yeah.
A situation where you are driving a small car and you want to compete with trucks, it creates some level of challenge for the occupants of that vehicle. And I think that is one of the reasons why we have been having fatal crashes as far as this road is concerned.
Yeah, apart from the attitude of the road users, we've discovered also that we have underage drivers riding trucks. Some persons have said a truck is more flexible, anybody can just move it. Do you regulate that also, or anybody who comes to your office for licensing, just get a license to go and drive a truck?
I can assure you that if you notice an underage person driving, that person is not licensed.
There are many of them on this road.
And you are drawing my attention to that now. I will address that squarely. I want to assure you that for us in the Federal Road Safety Corps and all stakeholders in the licensing process, no underage person can be issued a license. In fact, if somebody has not gotten up to 18 and above, the system will automatically reject you. So if you notice that somebody is driving a vehicle, whichever vehicle, and that person is not within the age bracket that we're talking about, that person has not been issued a license. And when we notice that that is being done, the appropriate laws will be applied.
Okay, we are already in the Ember months. I know you've already kicked up your activities for the Ember months. Can you take us through the road safety record for this period? How has it been so far in the FCT?
Okay, we actually flagged up the Ember Month campaign on the 7th of last month for us in the FCT. And since then, the train has been moving to all the area councils, Abaji, Kwali, Gwagwalada. Last week I was at Gwagwalada myself, and then Nyanya. We have been to Zuba and all those locations just to sensitize the general public. We are targeting zero fatality for the period. We are looking at the possibility of reducing drastically any crash that happens in the FCT that could lead to a crash. We are trying to avoid that as far as our campaign is concerned. I want to say that we have been recording a high number of crashes in the FCT. Unfortunately, if you consider what happened between January to August, precisely, we were having a curve that was a little bit on the high side, but we had a drop. When we got into September and the last month of October, a drop in the number of fatalities that were recorded in the FCT. As at end of October 2021, a total of 759 crashes were recorded in the FCT, leading to deaths of over 149 persons, unfortunately, during that period as well. We are updating those records, and then, unfortunately, we noticed that a number of people that died in lone accidents happened around Gwagwalada, which of course one of the predominant routes that we had those crashes. And then within the city, our flashpoint is Life Camp roundabout through to Kubwa Road, the bypass. I think that is one of the flashpoints that we have in the central area, where we lost quite a number of persons, prominent persons for that matter, during the period that we are reviewing. And then also we look at the time of these crashes. They happen mostly in the night.
Yes, that brings me to my next question. Okay. Your response at time, because like you said, some of these crashes happened in the night. Even the ones that happen daytime, sometimes there are this belief that your people don't respond on time. But we've noticed along the streets, you see your Hilux parked at major bus stops. So what's the response time to accident scene in the FCT command?
I want to know, with every level of confidence, tell you that wherever you get the information that we don't respond on time, I think it's better for you to check up. Our response to any crash within the FCT is within 5 minutes. I can give you that confidence, and you can check up by yourself. We have our zebras, that is the ambulance points, in 12 locations within the FCT. If you are coming in from Nyanya area, that is Kefi, Nasarawa State, you will notice a zebra point, 2 zebra points already. We have one by Goshen, when you are coming into the town. And then by Kubo, you have a zebra point, that is an ambulance point that is located there and respond to every issue of crash on that route. If you're also coming into the town, within the central area, you have one at the Villa Junction, that is the central area by the Federal Secretariat. You have one at Area 1. You have another one if you're getting out of the town through the airport route. We have one at the City Gate, and then just by the cemetery, immediately you cross the cemetery and you are getting to Lugbe, you have another zebra point there. Then if you are getting to Giri, we have another zebra point at the location. And then through to Kogi State, you have 3 other zebra points on that location. And if you come through the Kubwa Road, we have a zebra point, 2 zebra points in between Tipa Garage and Zuba. And then Zuba proper, you have another zebra point getting into Kaduna State. So you have 12 of them just within the city alone. And that will tell you that any accident that happens, whether day or night, our prompt response to that location is guaranteed.
Well, let's agree with you at that level, because some of us have seen that. Well, the attitude of Nigerians, once there's an accident and there's no quick response, that's kind of reactions you get. But let's look at your synergy with other sister agencies. Last week, the Nyanya route was we had that heavy traffic because of the stop and check that's happening there. But how do you liaise with agencies like this to ensure that you help to probably reduce the traffic on those streets, not just the Nyanya? The same thing happened on the Buhari axis of the FCT. So how do you synergize with other agencies to ensure that we checkmate issues of road traffic, especially along this route I just mentioned?
Okay. Our synergy, our relationship with stakeholders have been very, very cordial. The Nigerian police, the Nigerian army, that is the military, the civil defense, the VIO, all of us are working hand in hand in the FCT. If you look at the number of times we hold meetings and then relate, whether it's an issue of traffic or even issue of security, we attend these meetings together and we synergize as much as possible. The Commissioner of Police in the FCT today is somebody that myself and himself, will work together even as the time we were 2 ICs. And today he is the Commissioner of Police and I'm the one in the FRSC in the state. And that relationship has continued till this moment. Now, you made a reference to what happened last week. If you notice that in the early hours of that day, the first day of the incident, we had a massive deployment of our men. That was because we got the information that because of security situation in the FCT, there may be some level of challenge in traffic. And we
but there was no proper awareness to Nigerians. That's the problem.
No, when you say no proper awareness, I really, will not agree to some extent. And also, I need to make this emphasis that it may be very difficult for the military to come out and say, we have security this, and because of that, and things like that. That will create an unnecessary, diversion of issues. So it may not be very easy for the military to come out and make those statements in the public. So people should sympathize with that situation and have some level of understanding. I came on air, the second day of that incident, and I made the people realize that, look, it is a matter of a little patience. These things don't happen every other day. Yes, Nigerians have the right to talk, and all of us have the right to the use of the road. But if security breaks down, if issues happen and lives are lost, we'll get back to the military and say, look, they have not done the right thing. So we must show some level of sympathy when things like that happen, so that we don't create a scene or a picture that somebody is unnecessarily suppressing some other persons. But I believe strongly that with the issue of security cleared, as far as that road was concerned, things have come back to normal.
Yeah, we just believe that things will remain that way, normal, as you said. But we are approaching this festive season. This Utah is already here. What's the plan for the command as assuring the FCT residents of a free accident? Well, you cannot rule out the possibility of an accident, but to a large extent, you and your team should be doing manage the situation. So what are we expecting in this Utah
Number one,
season?
I assure the residents of FCT of our mass deployment. The essence of our mass deployment is to ensure that lives and property on the road are safe. That is the essence. It is not necessarily for punishment. Even though we're going to enforce, we have noticed quite a number of things that are predominant, factors for crashes in the FCT, and we're going to address them. Number one, overspeeding. Okay. Overspeeding is responsible for over 75% of the crashes that we record in the FCT, and that is why, as much as possible, we are preparing for deployment of radar guns, where we are going to use during the period. As much as possible, we will make sure that people do not overspeed on the highway. Our mass deployment is going to also address this issue of overspeeding, because we know that where our men are, on the highway, it serves as a deterrent. Once you see a uniformed person, not just road safety, a uniformed person, it gives you that consciousness to hold on, to brake. And because of that, we're going to do that as a way of getting back to reduce overspeeding on the highway. And that is why mass deployment will continue between now and January next year as much as possible. Not only that, we have also realized that one of the things that is responsible for crashes in our FCT, within the FCT, is this use of phone while driving and beating of traffic lights. We notice within the central area, beating of traffic light, and then not obeying the regulation or the rule of slowing down when you get to a T-junction and all that, are responsible for crashes within the central area. We're going to address those issues squarely. I want to say that the Federal Road Safety Corps, the Corps Marshal, magnanimously approved the use of body cameras in the FCT and in other parts of the country, and that is helping us. The analysis that we're getting from the use of these cameras has shown that people are now complying, particularly those that in the past were used to beating traffic light, are now conscious of the fact that, look, I'm being watched, I'm being monitored. Once you see a road safety personnel in the FCT, you know that there is somebody watching you somewhere. That consciousness has reduced the number incidences of beating traffic light and all that in the FCT. And I'm sure that as we get to the YouTube proper, much more will be done to ensure that lives and property are saved on the highway.
Yeah, before we let you go, sir, I know there was this massive campaign of speed limiting device. Don't know how far has that gone. Do we have it installed, especially here in the FCT, or we are still battling with that process?
Yes, I can confidently say that we have achieved over 75%.
Okay.
For fleet operators that have their terminals in the FCT. Now, this is the way it works. If you have there are fleet operators that FCT is a transit point, and there are fleet operators that have their terminals or they have their base, their headquarters in the FCT. And the other states of the federation where these fleet operators have their headquarters also handle these issues, and then as they pass through the FCT as the transit locations, we also check on them. But for us, those fleet operators that have their headquarters here or terminals here, I can assure you that we have achieved over 75% of installation of speed limiters in.
Well, how about the compliance? Are you sure they don't tamper with these things? Especially those who travel night trips and all that.
There are regular checks on them, you know, and they themselves are also educated to realize that, look, any driver that tampers with this property in our vehicle will also face sanctions. So we are taking over that as well.
So what's your message for the FCT residents as we draw the curtain for this discussion?
For us in the FCT, I want to appreciate everybody for the feedback that we're receiving from the general public. And I want to call on every citizen in the FCT to cooperate with us to ensure that we have safety on the highway.
Thank you so much for your time. As Sector Commander of the FCT FRSC Command, he is CC Ochi Olga Samuel. A very good morning to you again one more time, and thank you for being with us on the program.
I say thank you very much. I appreciate
we'll take a quick break here. When we return, the program this morning on ITV continues.